This practice I call the inner child chronology, and I often recommend this when my clients have missing memories from childhood, when they are experiencing dissociation and they're really struggling to connect with their inner child in any meaningful way. And also if their trauma narrative is unclear. So that means essentially that they're not really too sure what their wounds are. They're not really too sure what their kind of subconscious belief systems are. They're not really sure why they feel the way they do about themselves. They don't have a clear understanding about where these programs have come from or how they've arisen throughout their own life experience. So trauma narrative is unclear. So these are like the three main situations where I will encourage my clients to really do this practice. So I'm going to invite you to also consider doing this for your own healing and reflection, and see what comes up. Sometimes we do this practice and every time is showing us something different. So of course, the experience of PTSD is going to often lead to dissociation, missing memories, and an unclear trauma narrative. But it's not just in the case of PTSD or severe trauma that we want to do this exercise. It could also be because we're coming up against something, repeated cycle pattern in our life or in our relationships, in our health, maybe just the state of being that we find ourselves in. And we know it's familiar. We know it's something that kind of seems to have followed us through life, but we're not really too sure how to do anything about it. We're not too sure how to go deeper to really understand how to work with the root causes. It's not always the case that the root cause is an inner child issue, but a lot of our subconscious imprints come from before we could even talk, and things that we've picked up along the way. So the more we get familiar and the more vivid our own childhood becomes to us, the more vividly we can recall our memories, the easier it is to start to change how we feel about ourselves, and the deeper we will understand ourselves. A lot of the time, it's very confusing because there is no clarity, right? So the goal of this is to bring clarity and compassion. And there is no clarity because you don't really know much about your childhood. You don't really know because there's lots of missing gaps. You don't really know what's relevant, what's not relevant, what you should be working on. And that's often when we've become very disconnected from our inner child, or when we have had a lot of trauma, we don't really easily recall, say, the first few years of our life. So essentially what you're doing is you're going to go on a journey, and you take about a week to do this. You get a piece of paper and you're just going to draw your timeline. So from 0 to 10, and this is 10 years old. And you're going to start at your birth, right? And here you've got your halfway mark at 5 years old. And a lot of the unconscious imprinting happens before we're 7. So we're going to go up to 10 just to like really see how we felt at these ages. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to spend some time just spontaneously noting down any memories that come up. And memories tend to come up in the form of images, sometimes smells. You want to just go with it and allow any impressions and memories to come up. So let's start with memories. Right? And then you're going to draw these memories on the timeline. So you're going to say, okay, my first memory, like for me, one of my first memories, apart from my birth, well, actually, yeah, I could say my first memory really is my birth. And I have this memory of, and you can just describe it. So bright light, which is obviously the hospital room, the bright lights. I have this memory of being alone. I have this memory of just kind of like sensing that I'm being here now. Like I actually have come into the world in a way. And then my next memory, I'd say, is actually probably around 2 years old. So I'm going to write 2 years old here. And I kind of remember walking, like walking, crawling. I remember moving. I remember moving around the living room. I remember feeling kind of at home in my living room. And then it gets to maybe the age, I'm about 3. I kind of remember here developing this kind of very cheeky, becoming aware of my own intellect, becoming also aware of how I could perform to get my needs met. And my main need at this point was for attention, was for love. And, we can go on further on, 5, 6, 7, 8. I remember at 8 years old, I became very self-conscious of my body. I was very hairy and I had very big eyebrows and a mustache. So I became very aware of hair, mustache, and I did start looking and comparing. So comparison, and I became aware of that I became aware of kind of like this lost childhood. So I kind of felt like I'd kind of lost my innocence in a way, like there was all this time here, and then I was aware of, okay, I'm growing up, I'm actually getting older. So I had in between 5 and 8, what was I doing at 5 and 8? So you're going to just go with the flow. You're going to see what memories come up first. So for me, the first memories that come up 2 are the birth, 2, 3, 8. You can keep going, right? Every day you're going to do this. You're going to find new memories to write down. So try to write down the memories. Try to write down what you kind of felt, what your belief systems were. So draw on any emotion. Draw on any beliefs. Like for me, it was at age 8, my belief was women shouldn't really have hairy legs and a mustache. So for me, I was already aware that there was something on my body that I needed to get rid of in order to be acceptable. That's the program that I had digested. Now we have memories, emotions, belief. Also pay attention to what comes up about your body. So, here I'm already noticing body movement, right? I'm already noticing that I'm more in my head, right? And here I'm noticing becoming self-conscious about my body. And a lot of my healing journey was like a return to the body, because I did suffer from dissociation. And so I know what that feels like. And when you have suffered from dissociation, or maybe you already do have that as a kind of protection mechanism, it will really help you to do this chronology and actually start to reflect on which memories encompass your body. For example, I remember, this is a really good one. I remember at about 6 years old, racing to get attention and love, racing in the park with my brother and being encouraged to race him, and actually falling, and there was glass in the grass, and I ended up slicing my elbow and blood pouring everywhere, and obviously I lost the race. So my body, then I had to have stitches and go to A&E, and I was very aware of the fact that I was upset and I was angry. So let's write down these emotions. And I was angry. I was upset, not just because of the pain, but I was upset because I felt like my parents were the ones who were supposed to keep us safe. And actually, I ended up listening to them, doing this race, trying to race my older brother and getting injured. So I felt upset about that. And I remember wanting to blame them. So I remember wanting to kind of outsource my pain and outsource it to them and kind of blame them and say it's their fault, like they did this to me. But the truth is, at 6 years old, I actually ran that race voluntarily. But it doesn't matter, because when you do this practice, you're going to start going, okay, these are the things that happened to my body. And these are the body parts that were involved. And then this is the way that I feel about it. And as you start tracking your emotions, you're going to start noticing that there's some common emotions that will show up, right? They'll show up throughout your timeline. So you're paying attention. Memories, emotions, beliefs, body. You might also want to pay attention to relationships, right? So here I've already mentioned, I can't talk, relationships. I've already mentioned brother, parents, right? If you do this chronology for yourself and you find that actually the person who features most in your memories is maybe just one sibling, or maybe who features most in your memories is just your dad, but you don't actually have any memories that are coming up with regards to your inner child and maybe your mother. This is really going to be useful information, particularly if your childhood feels like a bit of a blur and you're doing inner child work and you're really struggling to get anything tangible. So what you're doing here is you're building up, and then so you do this for one day and you just leave it, and then the next day you come back and you go, okay, maybe you had a dream and memories arose in the dream and you started to go, okay, I'm going to put that down on my chronology, and you're going to fill in as much as you can. Like maybe, for example, the next day you come back to this and you say, okay, inner child chronology. Okay, let me just reflect. Let me just feel into my childhood. And yeah, I'm feeling into the age of about 9 years old. So this is a new day, new impressions. And what am I feeling into there? 9 years old. I'm actually feeling into the kind of 9-year-old student that I was. So reading, studying, very cerebral in my head. And I also remember going to a new school, starting a new school and meeting new friends. And first of all, feeling like an alien. And having everything was new. The uniform was new. The environment was new. So I was sent to a convent. It was actually 8 years old, but it's interesting. I associate it with 9 years old. This is another thing that's going to happen. Like, memory is fluid. Memories are structures in space, and the structures vibrate, and the structures will change. And you can change the way you associate yourself with your memories. Memory is not a fixed thing. So be fluid and just accept, like, you might have something that's attached to 9 years old, right? But actually it happened when you were 8. Okay, never mind. Like, don't get caught up in the, oh, I need this to be absolutely accurate. So 9 years old, did I write new school? Yeah, I wrote new school. And it was actually a convent. And there's a lot of conflict occurred for me at this convent because, you know, I was raised in a Muslim household. I was sent to a Catholic convent, and there was lots of rules in both places, both at home and at school. Lots of consequences for things, lots of programming, and yeah, there was some very deep contradictions for me that I had to reconcile, and I really struggled to reconcile. And a lot of this at 9 years old was around my voice and what we were singing or forced to sing, and how that affected me, my voice. And then later on, having to have an operation on my voice, my throat, to remove some nodules that had built up from the excruciating tension that I felt within my being, having to sing hymns every day, believe it or not. So you're going to do this same exercise, and you're going to just note down 0, 2, 3, blah, blah, blah. You're going to highlight, then you're going to come and you're going to highlight which areas of your body have you mentioned most, right? You might find that actually you're talking mostly about your womb. You might find you're talking mostly about your back. You might find maybe you're talking about your gut. All these memories are having something in common, and that is your gut. So just notice, go through with a pen and highlight. Again, similarly, the emotion, you know, here we've got alien, like not really belonging, feeling different. Here we've got feeling self-conscious. Here we've got feeling upset and angry. We've got wanting to perform, attention, you know, and again, self-consciousness. We've got love. You'll find that actually the earlier years, there will be less maybe raw emotion, like there'll be less emotion, but there will be more raw emotion. So what you'll tend to find is between age 2 and 3, a lot of age 0 to 2, a lot of what's going to come up is just raw primal fear. And then here you're going to start getting the sadness. Here you're going to start getting more complex emotions as you get older. So things like start getting into the subtleties, like, okay, frustration or resentment, or perhaps feeling insecure, disappointed. Whereas when you're very young, and those of you who've done the inner child work from a very young age, you will know how primal it is. It's like there's almost like 2 states, like love and fear, that a baby exists in. So it doesn't really have a filter, it's very raw between these ages. And then you start to develop the ability to feel not sadness, etc., but there's also the joy. Like, so don't forget about the joyful emotions, like what these memories are associated with. Don't forget to draw on the joy and the love and reflect. And when you've done this, and you're going to spend about a week, so you might want to take like quite a large piece of paper, or put 2 pieces of paper together, or maybe 4 pieces of paper together, and really give yourself space. Because you can see here, I've only just done this for 5 minutes, but I'm already running out of space. So if I was to do this for a week, I would end up with a lot more impressions. And what you're doing here is you're building up this idea about what memories, emotions, belief systems, somatic experiences, relationships, and also what traumas or life events occurred in your childhood that have probably imprinted at some level on your nervous system and on your mind, and also in what you believe about yourself. By identifying what the core emotions are that have shown up time and time again, right? By identifying how this relates to your belief systems, for example, what your I am statements are. And a lot of people who find that they are really being called to do inner child healing because of what they've experienced in their lives will often find that the emotions and the trauma events and experiences have led to this deep, I think I've accidentally just deleted my entire drawing. There we are. Whew. That was scary. Fear, pure fear. Anyway, a lot of people who find that they are that they have been called to do inner child healing work will find that actually the core presiding belief systems is like, I am not worthy. I am not worthy. I am lesser than. I am wrong. And by understanding how you hold this as an adult, you will really be able to, you understand why you hold these as an adult when you're able to map out what exactly you experienced as a child, right? And when you're able to link all of this together and find, okay, well, actually, most of what happened, most of the things that have affected my core belief systems and emotions and my body actually happened between, you could say, the ages of 0 and 3, then this is really the area where I want to focus my attention in my work. This is the area where I need to focus on reconnecting myself to my inner child and healing these aspects and integrating these aspects. Yeah. So here we've got fear, we've got sadness. This is where we want to be focusing on. If you find that actually maybe yours are more focused on around the maybe 8 to 10 years old, then focus there. So, some of you will find that you're doing this and your whole chronology is filled with challenging emotions, memories, relationships, and that there's actually trauma throughout your entire childhood, right? Don't feel bad if that does occur, and that does arise, because you're actually probably more, that's probably more common than anything else. Because if you imagine, it's very unlikely to experience a lot of traumatic events in the first maybe couple of years of life, and then for there never to be any consequences after that, right? And similarly, you're not really going to experience a very high level of toxic stress, trauma, health conditions, etc., just suddenly out of the blue at 10 years old. There will always be a build-up. There will always be events that are happening in the background. There will always be experiences happening in the body. So what you want to do is, especially if you experience a lot of illness as a child, or you were hospitalized a lot as a child, make sure you make a note of those as well on your chronology, and you'll start to build up a picture of how everything fits together. So hospitalizations, etc., come under events, surgeries, medication, abandonments, loss, coming under trauma, abuse, and anything else that you can reflect on. And once you've done this and you've filled it out, it's going to be, if you give yourself a good week to do this and you just visit this every day for a few moments, you're going to develop some real insights, like aha moments. You're going to be like, okay, I actually had no idea that I went through so much, and this is all pointing to what I experience right now in my body, what I believe right now about myself, and now I know exactly what I need to do to heal it. So instead of having a trauma narrative that is unclear, you're going to be very clear about what you need to do when it comes to healing yourself and your inner child. I hope this has been helpful. If you have any comments, please post them below, and we can always talk about anything that you feel you need to work on specifically and how this can benefit you and help you in your healing journey.